So whenever I started learning how to play bass, I wanted to play stuff like this. Learning how to slap on bass is probably one of the biggest techniques anybody who learns how to play bass wants to know, because it's such a big part of the fingerprint of playing the bass. Now, whenever I started to learn how to play, I got my hands on the bass and I started trying to slap, and I was like, man, okay, how do I do this? And I realized it's not as easy as it seems with all these pros that play it. After playing and being a part of the pro music industry for over 10 years now, and being around a ton of professional bass players that are incredible at slap bass, there are 3 elements that every pro knows when it comes to playing slap. 1, technique. 2, tone. 3, application. So basically, how to play it, how to make it sound good, and when to use it. So the way I'm gonna break each of these down is I'm going to teach you about it and then give you a couple of ways that you can practice it and develop it so you can throw it into your playing. So whenever I was learning how to play slap on bass, nobody told me ever what singles were. So basically what I consider a single is where you slap and pop one time, just like that. For a lot of people, you're probably just like, okay, well, how does that help me transform my bass playing? Something I didn't understand is like the rhythmic aspect of slapping and like all the in-between stuff. It's not necessarily easy to do clean when you don't have a lot of muscle. I don't think you're naturally built with muscle to be able to play stuff like this. Whenever I was starting to do this, I was like, oh my gosh, I'd do this like just maybe like 20 seconds and my arm would be like dead. I'm like, what in the world's going on? You have to work your right hand out on this technique to kind of get your gains in your strength and in your accuracy. So one thing that I do to help me first get started into developing this is slapping and popping without pressing down on my left hand, just kind of laying my fingers there and just slapping and popping. I'm just slapping on my A string and then popping on the G string and just doing that, just getting my hands used to it. And you can do this with the metronome, and I would start off slow because the whole point is to be consistent and even. You don't want to be like, you don't want to be like that. You want to be able to be constant and even like this, because what that starts to do is develop good accuracy and technique for when you are playing percussive. Another way you could use this is slapping and popping octaves. If you don't know what an octave is, all it is just if you play a note, you go up 2 strings and down 2 frets, which I call the 2x2 rule, and you get the same note. Okay, you hear this all the time in slap. And so what you could do is just practice going back and forth with your metronome, playing actual notes. So just make sure you go close your door somewhere where nobody can hear. I wouldn't even plug into an amp per se or into a computer. I would just literally go just without anything plugged in and just practice this, because if you have anybody in your house, it's gonna get annoying super, super quick. So another thing you could do is use these octaves on the major and pentatonic scale on 1 string. And you can also do it on the pentatonic scale and other scales as well. Now, the other way of practicing this, which is a little bit more difficult, but doing it on the same string sounds crazy, I know. But I'm telling you, it will help you get your accuracy up with your right hand. So basically, let's say I'm gonna play the A flat minor pentatonic scale. Watch this. So all I'm gonna do is play slap pop on the E string only, like this. And then I'm gonna keep going up on each note of the scale. This may make this technique a little harder to do, but what it does, it helps you become way more accurate when it comes to playing, because this is like cool technique I use all the time to kind of give emphasis to certain notes. So now the next technique that pros know are ghost notes and how to use them in slap. This was something that nobody taught me. This was something I just saw a lot of bass players doing, and I was like, what is that? Why is this so percussive? And so all it is ghost notes with slap. And so if you don't know what a ghost note is, all a ghost note is a note that doesn't have a pitch or a tone to it. It's just this, a thud. Now, a lot of people teach this with fingerstyle, but not many people talk about it with slapping. So basically all you're doing is, instead of playing a note slapped down like that, you just lift up your finger in your left hand and you just lay your fingers over it. You just do this. You slap and there's nothing there. The reason why this is so essential is because it gives you this ability to be really percussive in your playing and kind of accent things that the drums are doing, or even just accent rhythmic things that kind of make the groove sound better and more spicy. Here's a groove without any ghost notes. Now here it is with ghost notes. So I'm gonna be super honest with you. This is one of those secrets that nobody told me about. It started transforming everything I did with slap. Now there's a couple of ways that I practiced this to really get it under my hands. One was to play a ghost note in between each note of whatever scales that I know. And I would do every position, every mode, everything. So let's take the major pentatonic scale, for example. And we're going all the way through to the G string. All I'm gonna do is, as I'm going up, I'm gonna play a ghost note in between every note, like this. So I practice it with the metronome and really get my hand used to it, because the reason why metronome is helpful, because it pushes you to that next level when it comes to playing on speed and really getting it locked in. So now another way of practicing this is that I would do it with my pop, because you can't just do just your slap and just get it good with your slap. You got to be able to do it with your popping finger as well. So for this one, what I would do is, instead of slapping and doing a ghost note with my thumb, I would slap and do a ghost note with my index finger on the pop. So. So does this technique remind you of something? It's that same idea of the single slap pop technique exercise that I just went over just a second ago. But instead of doing it with each note being clear, you're doing one muted. So whenever you practice this with your metronome, just take your time, start off slow. Even if you have to start off at 20 BPM, go from there. 20, take it up 10 BPM next time, 5 BPM, 10 BPM, like whatever it is, just walk your way up to the place that you want to be. So one huge thing that every pro bass player knows about slap is hammer-ons, pull-offs, and slides are king. They're like literally in every slap bass line you could think of. So if you don't know what a hammer-on is, all it is where you play a note and then you hammer on with your finger without using your right hand, like this. Now, all a pull-off is where you do the same kind of concept, but instead of going and hammering on, you're gonna pull off to get the note up under your finger. So basically all I'm doing is plucking with my left hand so I can get this note sounding clear. So slides are a lot like hammer-ons, but the key is that you're using one finger and you're just keeping it pressed down until you get to another note, like this. So here's me using some hammer-ons and pull-offs and a slap groove. So the way that you could practice all three of these is by using them in your scales. So one way I like to develop my hammer-ons and pull-offs is I'll play scales without using my right hand, like this. Because when you're ascending, you're working your hammer-ons. And when you're descending, you're working your pull-offs. For slides, what I like to do is slide in between notes of the pattern of the pentatonic scale like this. And you could go backwards as well. So if you're thinking, man, Travis, you went through that really fast, just know I have a video that's called How to Improve Your Slap Bass Overnight. I'll link it up here. And I promise you, I go into it a lot more detail so you can understand and grasp it and practice it easily. Today's video is sponsored by HelloFresh. If you followed my channel for any number of years, you probably recognize that I have had a bit of a transformation when it comes to my weight in the past few years. Companies like HelloFresh really help when it comes to watching what you're eating to make sure you're not eating too much takeout and you're able to just make simple meals at home. So the way it works is that you go to their website and you choose whatever meal plan is the right one for you, depending on how many meals you want per week. And then they send it to your door, and all you have to do is just go and grab the box and open it up. And all the meals that you selected are prepared in these little bags that have all the ingredients with them. So the next step is to open up the bag of ingredients, lay them all out, and get to cooking. All the instructions are laid out on these cue cards that they send in the box when they send your meals. They are super easy to read and easy to understand. Me and my wife connect over cooking all the time, and I will say HelloFresh has really helped with these simple recipes that we make weekly. Go to HelloFresh.com and use code TravisDykes21 for 21 free meals plus free shipping. So now the next category is tone. Tone is something that every pro knows about, especially when it comes to slap bass. One huge hack that really helped me with developing better tone and cleanliness when I play is slapping closer to the bottom of the neck, which is about right here. A lot of times you see a lot of bass players that play way back here and their tone just like, it doesn't sound like a lot of the funk and R&B stuff that we like to hear, at least me. I mean, I don't know what you guys like, but for me, I like hearing that really nice, clean, even tone. Just like, the way that I've achieved it over the years, in a way, I don't know if everybody does it this way, but this is the way that's helped me. But I slap right down here at the bottom of the neck. If my thumb accidentally goes through the string or anything like that, it just gets caught right here at the end of the neck and doesn't go and get caught up under the string. So even if I make a mistake or my accuracy isn't perfect, if I hit it like that, it actually gives me a little bit of a space to recover versus just going through and just getting caught and losing the groove. So if I slap back here, you get this tone. But if you slap right here, you get this tone. For me, I like the tone up here a little bit more. You can let me know in the comments if you like the one back here a little bit more. I know some people slap back here because they like the tone of it, but I generally like this tone. So now the next tip with tone that I feel like it should be just like a given, but playing even. Okay, whenever I first started playing, I was playing like this. I was playing like one thing would be, my pop would be way louder than my slap. So what you have to start doing is learn how to play evenly to where you're getting the same volume out of your slap and your pop. Now, one way that I help my pop is instead of using my arm to like pull it off like that, I use my wrist and kind of have this motion like this. And what that does is it causes me to have more of an even go with my pop and my slap because it's just a twist of the wrist. And so what you do, you twist your wrist back and forth to get this even tone between your thumb and your index finger. Now, another way that people achieve evenness when it comes to slap playing is using a compressor. The compressor that I use is an API Transformer LX. Y'all have seen it. Y'all have probably seen it in every like playthrough video that I've ever done on this channel. But you don't have to have one to get really good tone. The key to using a compressor is to not overuse it. And a lot of people overuse it because it destroys your tone, because you start getting excited because, oh man, it sounds super slappy and it sounds super even. So you crank it up and you're like, yeah, this is great. It makes me sound better. It makes my bad technique sound good. That's not what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to actually add and give it just a little bit of an evenness, but also kind of boost some of that tone. I don't know what that was. Just make sure when you're using your compressor to not overuse it. So I'm gonna show you real quick on how my compressor is not up a ton, and I'm gonna cut it off and let you hear what it sounds like with and without the compressor. Let me know in the comments if you can hear the difference. So now the last tip when it comes to tone is having a bright but punchy tone with low end. A lot of times when I was a beginner and I was learning how to play, I would just hear these guys and their tone would just, you could hear the highs, and I was just like, oh, I need to make sure my highs are boosted all the way up. And so I would take my bass and I would turn up all my highs and my tone would sound like trash. Because the thing is, you got to realize you're playing a bass, so the low end still needs to be very present. So what I learned is that you have to have that presence there, but you also have to keep the low end there as well. There's two main type of bass configurations that I see a lot, especially if you're a beginner or even if you're, advanced player, professional. Right here is a Fender Squier precision bass. This is something that a lot of you guys have. On these type basses, you have a volume and a tone. Now, a lot of times to get a good brightness out of these type basses, I like to have my tone all the way up instead of like dialed back at all. Now, if you have crazy bright strings, then yeah, feel free to dial back on your tone to where it feels nice and even. Let me give you an example of with the tone turned back, what it sounds like. Now this is with the tone back up. So now with basses like Asia here, which is a Bassmods K534, it's a 5-string bass. I have a 3-band EQ, which is highs, lows, and mids. On these type basses, what I like to do is if my strings are really dead, I'll boost the highs just a little bit. You don't want to boost them too much. 95% of the time, I have all of my settings flat, just so you know. 95, probably 98% of the time. But if my strings are really dead, sometimes I can boost the highs just a little bit, but not too much to where it overtakes the lows and it doesn't feel like a bass anymore. So while I have this bass, I'll talk about the last part of this, which is strings. Strings really make a huge difference when it comes to your tone. I have on this bass Elixir nickel wound strings, which I've been kind of experimenting with to just check them out, especially with like gospel and slappy kind of stuff. They have a pretty bright sound. So now great strings really play a huge part in this whole gambit of getting good tone. So make sure if you're wanting to get good slap tone, get you some great strings. I'll throw a couple in the description that are some go-tos for gospel, funk, and R&B that I use all the time. So now the last category of all of what the pros know is how to apply your slap in songs in different places. Because sometimes when you slap, it doesn't work in every song. Trust me, I know. I have made a lot of mistakes playing slap in places that it just has no reason to be a part of. Playing slap in worship songs or playing slap in ballads. I'm like, what? It's just because you get excited sometimes. You start learning these techniques and you're like, oh yeah, I could slap. I could do this. Let's use it in everything. But it doesn't necessarily go with everything. So one huge thing that every pro knows is where to use slap to where it's not cheesy or taking away from the music. So some common genres that you'll encounter a ton of slap is funk, gospel, R&B, pop, soul. I mean, there's a lot of different genres. Fusion, just know you encounter it a lot, but some places that you're not going to encounter it are like ballads or songs where it's just piano or just very minimal instruments, unless it's something really groovy. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with trying to find a place to add slap in some of these songs, but it has to enhance the song and not take away from it. And a lot of times, if you do not use slap right, you'll take away from the song just as much as you add to it. So I've been a producer for some years now, and one thing is super evident, and also just being around pro players, is that slap is used to create energy. And what I mean by energy is like, if you ever hear a slap bass line on something, it's usually on the drop of the song, and it's like, not normally a place where it's low energy. So knowing that, if you go into a course, you're going to a spot where there's like where you could create like a high energy moment, know that slap can create that. So like if you're in the moment and you're just playing on stage and you didn't practice doing slap in this area, but everybody's just feeling the moment and everybody's just improvising, that could be a place to throw it if it's high energy. But if you're on stage and y'all are playing a ballad, it's piano, it's you, and it's like a drummer with a cajon, it probably isn't a good practice to throw some slap in the mix, unless it's a song that already has it or needs it or something that you practice. So now something that is learned with experience, and I will say I've learned this with just playing on sessions and different things like that you can add slap when there is a simple drum groove, and it really adds a lot. So let me give you an example of this. So I got my drum machine here, and all I'm gonna do is just play you a little groove. So this is a pretty simple groove. It's not really showy, it's not really doing a whole bunch, it's just simple. This is like a groove that you could add slap to and give a lot of life. So being watchful and listening and hearing these moments where there's simple drums, I promise you, when you start adding and creating some grooves to it, people be like, man, how did you know that was gonna work? Assess the song. Is this a high energy song? Is this a groovy song? This is a fun song? Is it gonna be a cool moment? And then make the judgment call based off of that. So guys, I know this video was a ton of information. So if you need to slow it down or need to go back to a particular part, check out the chapters that I have linked in the description below. And if you like this shirt, or if you want to help support this channel, feel free to go check out my merch on my website, travisdykesmusic.com. It'll be linked in the description as well. And if you're wanting more videos about slap bass, feel free to go check out this video where I teach you how to improve your slap bass overnight.